Urbanization and Action Research Studies in Northern, Central, and Western India, primarily in Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Chhattisgarh. These years have been these years have been given him intensive field experience and knowledge of challenges faced by him or by India, challenges facing India, especially agriculture, rural non-farm sector, and urban development. He has worked over 20 years in public policy directly with state governments in writing state human development reports. He led the team that pioneered the world first sub-national SDR of Bangladesh in 1995. He has since then written over 8 human development reports, 5 for Madhya Pradesh and for Punjab, Chhattisgarh, and Bundelkhand. His work in public policy has also involved planning and research, work on income and employment, social sectors, poverty reduction, and urban governance. Further, he has also been running the budget and governance sector for Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh for over 10 years, working on budget with government, including continuous tracking of key sectors and key projects in agriculture, rural livelihoods, education, health, forest issues. Professor Dixit has more than 10 years experience in mass politics, elected for 2 consecutive terms, 2004 to 2014, to the Lok Sabha from East Delhi, and he was Chief Whip of Indian National Congress Party from 2012 to 2014. Professor Sandeep headed the research cell for the Indian National Congress and is also the national spokesperson of the party. Now, I would request Professor Sandeep to take over and address the students who are eagerly waiting to hear from you. Professor Sandeep.
Hemanji, since I'm driving on the highway and pretty far away, there may be some connectivity problems, so just pardon me in case that happens.
Right.
And in case you can't hear me, just let me know so that I can pause till the connection comes back.
Fine.
Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine. And meanwhile, I'll request student to raise hand on the screen itself. And Professor Milindo Chakrabarti has also joined us. And I would request Professor Milindo to take over when Professor Sandeep's connectivity, we get lost connectivity from Mr. Sandeep.
Okay.
Yes, Professor Sandeep.
Okay. Milindo ji, I'm in Shivpuri. Milindo ji, I'm in Shivpuri. Milindo ji, I'm in Shivpuri right now. Hello?
Professor Milindo, we can't hear you. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So have a nice, safe driving and also have an exciting discussions while on the move, because public policy demands mobility.
Okay.
And you are showing it in practice.
Okay. Now let me get back to the topic. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. See, this topic concerns what are the career opportunities, or where is it that public policy students and public policy practitioners can work both after they complete a course like yours and in later years. Let me very briefly, just describe what is it that the course of public policy, what my understanding is, and I'll request later on Professor Milindo to fill in wherever he believes I've either missed out or perhaps overstated some point. One is that students in these 2 years will build within themselves an understanding of, first of all, what really this word policy is. What do we mean by public policy? In common understood parlance, normally, as we grow up and we work, we find policy as a very large word. It has a very significant, large meaning, and normally we associate it with the way a government is run, directions given, something very, very formal and very large. For example, you must have heard of the new education policy that has come out and been adopted by the cabinet about 4 or 5 days ago. But policy, of course, that is also a policy, and that is also very critical policy. Policies on education or on health, policies on rural development, policies about livelihoods, economic policies, taxation policy. But policy has many, many other dimensions. And there are many other things which we form a part of policy. So your course A will make you understand many of these. It will also probably take you through how policies are formed, how a need for policies at different levels for different types of things, come up. So I think students by the end of 2 years develop a very comprehensive and a very strong understanding of what policy is all about. Where all does it need to be applied? When is it that we think policies need to be changed or modified or upgraded or updated, whatever word you would like to use? How is it that we assess and evaluate policy, and how what is most important is how is policy implemented on ground? Governments or institutions have a plethora of systems to implement policy. It is through programs, schemes, projects. It is through HR policies. It is through laws. It is through regulations. It's through building new institutions, creating new organizations. And the other thing is that policies are not just restricted to government. It is in private institutions, it is in large corporations, it is in industrial houses, it is in cooperatives, it is in farmer producer organizations, it is in organizations of people fighting for a cause. So there are policy and policy related issues right across the gamut of human activity, especially organized human activity. So therefore, understanding policy and its nuances and how it's put to ground is something that really strengthens our understanding of how things happen. Apart from this, students will also be exposed to some very basic and important principles in economics, especially those which are related with policy, with economic policy, with growth, with livelihoods. You will be exposed to how governments work and what are the systems there, how policies have evolved over the past many years in India, what have been the imperatives by which Government of India thinks in particular ways. Seriously engage with this whole world of public policy with regard to governments and to policy in general, and also get an idea of how are these things done across the various institutions we have. I would say is, I think, fairly able, very able group of skills are given to students who do this course over a period of 2 years. Now, what is it that you as public policy students bring to the table when an agency or an organization looks at you at the end of 2 years? And what is it that for want of a better word, the job market or the career market is actually looking for? Now, there are 3 or 4 things, interestingly, that are happening, which perhaps was not there when either I was a student of when maybe Professor Milindo was a student. And these changes are that, one, large organizations, including the government, have come to this thinking now that all knowledge is no longer their basic domain, that they do need people from outside of government to assist them, to help them. Earlier on, lateral influences into government, which is outside the government system, which is non-bureaucrats, non-elected politicians, would normally come in advisory roles. So you would have an advisory group for an education policy, or an advisory group for a tax policy, or you would have something called the advisory councils for chief ministers or for in district collectors. But these are getting more institutionalized now. You're finding issues of advisors in various forms. You're finding people asking organizations outside government to advise and aid the government. Large number of consulting and policy-based organizations have come out outside of government that also influence government. And private corporations are now also looking increasingly to organizations outside them to aid and advise them on various issues related with regulation, issues related with promotion, issues related with their business activities, issues related with the nation and society that they operate and work in. So one is that this thing has opened up, and that opens up a huge, arena of possibility for people to work in. One thing I would like to certainly, of course, put in here, and that is something I think most students who are entering the domain of public policy should keep in mind, because I find that this is sometimes a bit of a problem, especially when it has come to your seniors and their assessment of what is it that they are worth. At the end of 2 years, it is not necessary that you become experts in the ability to frame policies. That is something that gets honed in and develops as you, you gain more experience, as you work in organizations. And my I won't say advice, but my suggestion to many of you would be that at the end of our 2 years, we must also look at organizations that are working in the implementation of policy, which are field organizations, organizations doing field-based research, organizations engaging in promotion and regulation on the field. There could be voluntary organizations, that could be evaluating bodies, there should be small organizations, in remote parts of India. And once you put in a little bit of effort there, most of you become far more capable and competent to work in larger organizations and meaningfully contribute than perhaps students who would like to straight away get into these organizations. Of course, those are choices in front of you, but my thing is that those who, add to their knowledge base through direct experience engaged with policy and implementation of policy, along with, this 2 years of very rich experience that you will have as a student, this will really strengthen you, and you will move on from public policy students and public policy professionals to what I would say public policy practitioners. And I would use the word practitioners perhaps at a level even higher than professionals. But there you gain much more and perhaps will be able to contribute in quality to the agencies you work with in a far more effective manner. So one is this, that governments have opened up very much. Second is there is a interdisciplinary nature of a lot of advice and aid that is coming in that is much more acceptable today. People are linking different problems together, weaving a lot of things together, and are no longer working so much in their silos. So people in education work as much with people who are looking at children and psychology of children, people are looking at women and women's health, people who are looking at children and children's health, people are looking at issues of caste and community-based discrimination, people who are looking at issues of access and how economics plays out with opportunities in education. So large number of understanding and issues across sectors are being put together to get a more comprehensive, more detailed, and a more relevant and valid understanding of any sector. Similarly in health, similarly in promotion of livelihoods, similarly in forming economic policies. Environment, something that hardly ever came into the domain of many other policies, is now directly influencing most of the others. I mean, I remember in the 70s and 80s, especially in the 70s, environment hardly ever played a role in economic policies. But today, issues of environment and ecology become very, very important when economic policies are framed. Now, whether they are adequately, the concerns of environment and promotion of ecology and environment are adequately addressed by economic policy or not, that's a separate question. But fact is that because of this fact that there is a cross-sectorality today, influences and inputs from different disciplines are being brought together. Students of public policy who are trained through their skills and through their 2-year knowledge of putting various things together, become much more capable and efficient of helping the organizations they work in to putting in these cross currents and different forms of information and experience together to coherently, analyze and say what really is happening. So that's the kind of second thing that's happening. The third thing that's happening is that knowledge is no longer considered a domain of age and experience. We had the great biases of age at one point of time, and everybody who would advise or tell you what to do had to necessarily have white hair and at least 50 to 60 years of age. Now, I'm not saying this with any sense of simplicity, but what I'm saying is that today people are looking at abilities and expertise rather than just age and experience. And that is something where the opportunities open up far more for all of you than it used to happen earlier. So by the time you come at the end of 2 years, and another thing that we are trying to now bring into the 2-year course, in a little more organized fashion that we could do earlier. And in that sense, a slightly larger class batch that hopefully your batch will also help us is to become much more organized in the arrangement of internships for you. So maybe in between semesters, or maybe in your break at the end of your first year, that is something we need to work out, because we are still not sure how much time the COVID pandemic will afford to us to allow people to work with other organizations. Of course, as Professor Milindo will probably also inform you, there are also many opportunities in which people are working with organizations through the web and internet. But still, I think the the ability to be able to go to organizations. If COVID permits us, we'll try and do that. But at least not, if not this year, then it's certainly from next year. Those kind of internships will come up much more in front of you. That will also strengthen your ability and build your experience base for the years that are coming across. So what are the kind of organizations I think that you would be looking at, at going towards, and who would look very sympathetically and in fact excitingly at public policy students? These will be organizations that are working in field on issues of development, on issues of health, education, environment, advising on policy, on regulation, on law and people, on cooperatives, on building people's institutions. Even, in fact, we found that even political organizations and political leaders look at public policy students to strengthen how they are working in their different areas. And a lot of our students are also getting picked up there. Consulting organizations that require younger people who are quick on their feet, who are coming in fresh with new ideas and new training to help their larger teams in whatever they are engaged in terms of consulting, advice, and research. Purely research-based organizations require students who have ability to, on the one side, work with numbers, both large numbers as well as small numbers, who are able to understand what research is. Very often you must have heard these words called quantitative and qualitative research. So who have an ability to do both, people who can both work computers and programs that help in analyzing data, as well as building the research questions, implementing them on field, and undertaking field studies themselves. Students who can do case studies that are very valuable for organizations to understand what's happening on field. So large number of research and consulting bodies are coming through. We're also having a small buildup of high quality and good quality think tanks coming across India. Some are working with state governments, some are working with national governments, some are working in districts, and they range the entire span from very large to very small but very effective think tanks. They are also looking at students to bring on in. And another field that's opened up, which has come out through a legal thing, is the whole issue of corporate social responsibility. So under CSR, large number of big corporations have had to spend huge amounts of money. They need people to ably manage their funds in field, in implementation, in giving them ideas, in evaluating, in finding out how the work is going on, what new they can do. And CSR is another field that's kind of opened up. And since most of these efforts are coming in new, right? The students from Jindal, and I believe that we probably give some of the best public policy training amongst all the schools that are available right now. These organizations, whichever ones I have met and spoken to, and some of those from whom I've heard because our students have worked there as interns, is that a fairly good reputation has developed on the Jindal school. We need to build on that and take all the opportunities to place our students once this is created. So I thought in a little nutshell, this is the kind of opportunity that will come to public policy professionals or public policy students, especially to those from the Jindal School of Governments and Policy. Professor Milindo, is there anything else you would like to add to this, or things that I may have left out?
No, you have, thank you very much. You have covered most of the things that.
Prof, you can hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Am I audible, Munimala?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, sorry. Actually, some wire came off somewhere, so I wasn't sure if you were hearing me.
No, now what I would suggest that whatever you have covered are good enough, and as long as you can continue, you carry on. If there were some questions raised by the participants in the previous session which could not be answered, the moment you finish up, I will take those questions from them.
Yeah, Professor, I think I've kind of summed up what I wanted to say. So if you could take on those questions, and then we could ask students to ask questions on this session. Is that
Okay.
fine? Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's fine. That's fine. So thank you, Professor Sandeep. Let me take up some of the questions that you raised in the previous session, and also some of the questions that you may raise right now after what Professor Sandeep discussed. We may start with questions for him, and then we can go to the next round of questions which you wanted to raise with Professor Sudarshan. So you can raise your hands and you can ask your questions to Professor Dixit. Yes. Who is there? Joshi. I can see the
Joshi
name.
Pranav, you can unmute and you can switch on your audio, video both.
Yes, good morning, professors. I hope I'm visible to sir. My
Can you, can you
question.
put on your video, please? Or it's
Yes,
very
sir.
difficult.
It is on, sir. I hope I'm visible now.
Oh, okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
So my question was regarding the fact that when we are going for a career in a field as new as public policy, so to say, in our country, what are the factors that should be considered for individuals like me who do not come from an economically, or you can say that I come from a diverse economic field. I do not come from an entrepreneurial family. So, what considerations should I have while opting for a career in public policy?
Okay. Sandeep, would you like to answer?
Yeah. Well, this is a tough question because there are no easy answers to this. Because one thing is very clear. You are mentioning the fact that entering a more uncertain and new field like public policy is a risk. There is a bold step that you would take in case you enter this course, and I think I compliment you for both the fact that you are willing to take this step and asking this question. Now, one, public policy is not actually such a new line. It's been there internationally for a long while. And
Yes,
while
sir.
we call this as public policy now, students who could work on issues of policy, issues of development, issues of working with organizations, looking at regulation, looking at government industry interface, a government people interface, trying to see how we can take on what's happening around the world as a good feedback to institutions and get them to work well in the arenas they work in. This has been happening in many, many ways. Prior to public policy, a large number of management-based institutions had started developing courses that would do things like that. There was Institute of Rural Management, which would work in rural management. And in a sense, you could call it as a public policy school in rural management. The Institute of IIFM, the Institute of Forest Management, would do that. The Xavier Relations, XLRI would do that. The Xavier's people have a school of rural management in Bhubaneswar. They were doing things like that. And almost all their students were being very ably placed because market had realized that these are people with great skills. They span the whole range of what is called development or management or development management or rural development or forest management. And right from a small voluntary organization to a big public policy kind of institution, they have skills in which they will be useful to all these organizations. So the reason I'm putting this up is that the market, if I want of a better word, the market for people with skills in public policy was already there. It was not named in a manner like this and not linked to institutions like this. But over the last 7-8 years, the market has realized that these students are available. These students have skills that suit us. These students have skills that we have experienced and found them to be effective and good. And therefore, I would say that the risk today is not as much as what it was, say, 5, 7, 8 years earlier.
Yes.
Still, it is like all institutions in which you don't go for prescribed set pattern of jobs. There is a risk, okay? But just because there is a risk, there is also an excitement to it. And
Yes,
since
sir.
it's a new field, most of you would be pioneers when you enter this line. I mean, I never had a course like public policy while I'm teaching in this course. I don't think most of us did. So as I said, there is an element of risk. I will not be truthful if I say no, there is not. If everything is said, everybody is going to get a job. Obviously, maybe something maybe left out, but the conditions today are far better than what we were before, and I believe it's now an exciting new line to get into.
Perfect, sir. Thank you so much.
Any other hands? Any other question to Professor Sandeep?
So may I go?
Yes,
Sandeep.
please. Sandeep Kumar Saha. Please unmute yourself and put on your video, and one who put up the video.
Hello.
For the,
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are very much audible.
Thank you. Sir, thank you for doing this. I mean, this prestige program, orientation program. I have been following the previous webinars also. So my question is like, given the public policy is a multidisciplinary subject, and public policy is derived from all the social sciences that are relevant in the current situation and also in the past. And I have also mentioned in my interview that I am more interested in economic development and particularly the role of finance in economic development. So can I expect opportunities in development banks after this course, or is it will be a too high aspiration?
Well, would Sandeep would like to answer?
Professor Belito, I'll answer a little bit and then you take on. By development banks, do you mean commercial banks, or do you mean banks that are concentrating on agriculture and rural development? Because in my terminology, development banks meant slightly different from commercial banks. So if you'll just clarify yourself, you mean commercial banks?
Not commercial banks, but in development bank, like example like ADB or Asian Development Bank or.
Okay. Now let me first be very clear. Most of the organizations that you are talking about, which are what we normally call multilateral financing institutions or multilateral organizations, these are all open for you, okay? But not when you start. Most of these organizations prefer people with experience, okay? They also take people with certain academic backgrounds, like people with finance, people with economics, because there are very specific jobs with these banks which are only handled by people with those skills. So obviously, if you want to contribute to monetary issues in those banks, they'll also look at probably people with the monetary background. But apart from that, whether it's ADB or it's the World Bank or it's the IMF or it's other multilateral institutions, large number of countries in the world also have these multilateral institutions. Most of them are looking for skills of people in policy, in development, in public policy, but they will also look for what is the experience you had. So that's what I said, if you go back to my initial comments, that if you strengthen your 2 years of public policy course with some solid work, in whichever field you want to choose it, and make you, let me put it that way, much more marketable, and you become a product that is far more expensive for people to take on. So your job prospects and career prospects become even better. So I would say, take it as something that happens after about 5-10 years of work. Some people are lucky. There are some organizations that pick up people rather early. But I would say that will not be a very exciting career. I don't want to offend anybody, but most of these institutions are not such an exciting place to work with in your initial years. You don't land up learning much. But if you join them after you've done, years of good work on field, understood and built your experience, then you add to those organizations and the organizations start valuing you. Professor Milindo, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, let me just come in here. Thank you for the issues, the suggestions that you gave. I will just add to this. So far as our school and our networks with different organizations is concerned, there are possibilities of offering you internship with these organizations during the break between the first year and second year. Right now, 15 of our MAPP students are doing their internship with an organization called OECD. Perhaps you have heard of that Organization of Economic and Development, Economic Cooperation for Development. This is a group of donor countries who provide development assistance to the developing world. And 15 of our students are doing their internship with OECD right now on several issues of international development related to certain particular areas. Some of them are working on Africa, some of them are working on Latin America, some of them are working on Asia. So if you show interest, some such internships can be organized with organizations like ADB, or there is an organization called Islamic Development Bank, or there is an organization called African Development Bank. So our faculty members have good linkages with them. So these sort of internship opportunities to get a first-hand experience as to how they work can be organized, but the point is there has to be a perfect matching between demand for skill and supply of skill. So we at the school are ready to provide you with the skill, but your supply of skill is also dependent on the way you absorb those knowledge and skill. So it is not just a one-way process that the school organizes everything, but you also have to develop yourself to match, because these are all globally competitive opportunities. There will be so many people competing with you for this, but we have got the necessary linkages with these organizations, and those can be arranged if you can show that you are able to provide some support and some sort of knowledge, some value addition to those organizations. Just to give you a point, this OECD internship was offered for 3 months, and now they want those internships to be extended. OECD has asked for an extension of the internship by 1 or 2 or 3 more months. That means our students have shown that they are capable of delivering the requirements of those organizations. So if you have the aspiration, if you work hard along with your faculty members, I think those opportunities will come your way on a platter. But you have to also work hard. You have to prepare yourself
Madam.
to ensure that
Mona.
you have a plate in your hand. If you don't have a plate in your hand, nothing can come to you on a platter. So I would suggest that those opportunities are not very difficult to come by. But what Professor Sandeep said, that initial recruitment in these organizations are not of a very high value. They work as just, I would say, to use a little derogatory term, to work as slaves to the experts in these organizations. So they don't know or learn much. So you can go for internship, then join some organizations where you can work yourself and learn, and then having gained in some terms of experience, you can go to a respectable position in those organizations. That is how I would like to put my point here. Now to come to the question that was raised before you, if Sandeep allows, I can answer that question. I can add to your answer to the question that you...
Yes, please. Please.
So my point is, let us try to understand, because I think there are several fundamental confusions still lying among many of us, not only those who would be joining, but those who are engaged in public policy, and they are to be clarified. And I would just say that there is a huge challenge in terms of employment opportunity which is coming up. right now in the context of India. You might have noticed that for last 75 years, India has come out with a large number of policy documents, and they were introduced after some time, sort of by a way of inertia. Those policies were replaced and a new set of policies were introduced. And often it was argued, it was found perhaps, that the change in policy was not a policy decision but a political decision. And you have to understand, and people have now realized that policy change should be a policy decision. Policy change should not be a political decision. And this is very evident from the changes in the, the recent introduction of the education policy in 2020. If you have a look at the introductory paragraphs of the last few education policies, right from 1968, followed by in 1986, and then in 1992, and then in 2020, you will find that there is no fundamental difference in those first few paragraphs, introductory paragraphs, as to why we require an education policy. We are always saying that we want to enhance the quality of life, we want to enhance the quality of human capital of our population, and so on. And unfortunately, if you have a look at these documents, you will find that no methodological rigor is there while the policies were framed. And that is true for even the present one as well. Now we feel that there is a huge need of professionals who are trained in the methods of policy making. This was absent because there was no such program, no such courses on public policy available in India. So we do not have the expertise in the, just as there are experts in methods of research, we require an expertise skill of young men and women who will have the expertise in making in methods of making a policy. A policy has to have an objective. A policy will have to have a process where you decide what went wrong in the previous policy with some evidence, and then decide whether a new policy is required or not. It cannot be just politically decided. So there has to be some process involved in our policy making process, and that has been being realized. And this is perhaps one of the niche areas that is coming up in the context of the public policy platform in India today. And who can be the best suitable talents who can join these required expertise group? You are the ones, because you will be trained in the methods of policy making and you will be given the clues as to when should we go for a policy change or not. And not only that, why should we go for a policy change? And we fully believe that having done this course for 2 years, you will be equipped to take a decision in a professional manner on that. As Sandeep was mentioning, that we have now realized the need for professional policy makers. And we don't just depend on the generalist policy makers in the form of IAS and other bureaucrats. So we are in the look, the society is the lookout for that, and JSGP is in a process of creating that expertise. I think Sandeep would like to add some of his points here.
I think, Professor, you covered that. I think I'm really glad that you explained it in this manner. So it sort of, not only answers these questions, but perhaps adds to the part I left out in my discussion elsewhere. So I think it's good. So should we go on to the next question?
Yes. Is there any other question? Can you put out your video off? One who started it at the beginning. I'm not getting your name. One who asked the first question. Can you put your video off? Is there any other question?
Hello, sir. Can I go with the question?
Yes, please.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Aniket. My question is for Sandeep, sir. Sandeep, sir, earlier you mentioned that that the expertise nowadays is more valued in terms of rather than experience. So one of the option that you suggested that working with the field organizations after the post graduation. So my question is what is the role of a PhD to having a domain expertise to prosper in this career? So will it help to have a PhD after the post graduation to gain a domain expertise, sir?
Okay. I would have actually been competent to answer questions for the public policy thing. What I would request, Professor Milindo, you take this on first, and then I'll add on to this question.
Okay.
Because yours is a far more specific question. I think it's a good question that needs to be elaborated a little more. So I'll request Professor Milindo come in on this, because he's asking a question with regard to.
Yes, I would rather, before answering your question, I hope you won't mind if I ask you a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is your perspective about a PhD program? What do you think? What does it give?
In my little knowledge, sir, I think.
No. Don't be that sort of a person with a lot of humility. Don't use the term little. You are knowledgeable enough. That is why you have come to join a public policy program. You are knowledgeable enough. And what is your perception about a PhD program?
Sir, my perception is that within our post graduation there will be number of interdisciplinary subjects. So
Okay.
I would choose one subject that I would like to work in that field for a long time. And then within that field, the challenging areas which are there, that will be specialized in the PhD, I guess, sir.
Okay. So you think PhD means specialization in a particular domain?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But can that not be done by not doing a PhD, but joining a particular organization with that domain expertise?
Yes, sir. It can be done, sir.
Then what is the difference between PhD and joining an organization with a particular domain expertise? Do you think there is a difference there?
Sir, I asked this question because, sir, many of these government consulting firms, people are qualified with the PhDs. If you look their profiles, so common thing is that they are PhD scholars. So that is why I thought, is their PhD taken very seriously for consulting roles?
Is it because, no, that is why I am saying you have to be very careful and clear about it. They have joined a consulting firm with a PhD. Is it because the consulting firm demanded a PhD? Or is it because they did not get any other job, that's why they joined it?
No, sir, I don't have any idea about this.
Yes. What is the fundamental purpose of a PhD program is to train a young man or woman, or maybe even an older person, to learn the methods of doing research. So in a PhD program, it is not necessary what conclusion you have arrived at the end of the day with your thesis. When I am examining a PhD thesis, I take two fundamental criteria to decide whether the degree should be awarded or not. Number one, whether the existing or rather accepted methods of research have been followed. Number one, how he or she has mastered the art of doing research. And secondly, whether or not by mastering, the concerned individual is capable of supervising a PhD scholar later.
Yes, sir.
The conclusion of the PhD thesis perhaps is of no value while a PhD degree is arrived. We are more interested in the process that was used to arrive at that conclusion, not the conclusion per se. So when you say that you will be doing a PhD, you are expected to be having an aspiration to join an academic process. If you are not joining an academic process, uh, it is perhaps a wastage of time in doing a PhD program.
Right.
And you might have noticed, often in newspapers we come across news items where it is said that someone did a PhD and applied for a job of a sweeper.
Yes, sir.
So do you think that you find that someone having done a PhD has joined a job of a sweeper gives you the clue that, well, to become a sweeper, you have to become a PhD? No.
Yes.
It's the problem on the other side. It's not the problem on this side. These are not the skills demanded for that particular post.
Yes.
So the point that I'm trying to make is whether or not you want to go for a PhD program is completely dependent on what you want to be at the end of the day. If you want to join a public policy school as an assistant professor, a PhD is required. But
Yes,
if
sir.
you want to join as a public policy professional in some organization, a PhD is less relevant than on-job, on-field experience at the field level.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sandeep, would you like to add to it?
Yeah, I think very well put in. I'll just add one another side to this. You asked a question in the beginning that are people looking at only expertise and not experience that much? And related to the question that you were asking is, see, sometimes think tanks and consulting organizations also take on PhD students because sometimes they need core academic expertise in a few areas. Okay, so it does not mean that they value only a person with a PhD degree, in the kind of people who work with them. One is, of course, the fact that PhD students also have a certain kind of a skill with them and an ability with them, which was very well explained by Professor Milindo. I think sometimes you do need kind of a domain expertise, which you believe a person doing PhD in that line may bring to you. So, which is why sometimes you will find that the number of PhD students in a think tank or a consulting organization would be in percentage a little more than in other organizations. But I'll also tell you, all these organizations value people who have got direct experience of work in that field, equally, if not more, than people with this kind of a expertise coming in. So, and that I can say with a lot of experience. A lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my people I know from the institutions I studied in, people who spent 4, 5, 6 years in organizations that worked in education or organizations that worked in promotion of livelihoods. Even, I have friends who worked in promotion of beehive. Some people worked in sericulture. Some people worked in agriculture. Some people worked in organic farming. Most of them have, almost all of them today are, advising, aiding, and in many senior and good positions in different organizations, perhaps doing better than people with other expertise because these organizations have valued them for what they have learned on field. And on field may not always be, going exactly where production or manufacturing is happening. It's with organizations that are engaged in a process right from its beginning to the end. So people who are handling schools does not necessarily mean you have to be a teacher to understand the issues in education. You can be an educator, you can be managing a school, you can be in an organization that's running about 100 schools, you can be in a government department that manages schools. By field B, I think both Professor Milindo and I meet people who are actually engaging in the actual practical work of something that's happening. And it could be at any level. So I don't think we should be disheartened that strengthen your own abilities. I think work experience will probably give you, equal abilities.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Just to add to this,
Mm.
to continue what Sandeep argued, who are the policy makers in India today? Mostly
Sir.
the Indian Administrative Service officers.
Yes, sir.
What is the qualification
Yes, sir.
to become an
Okay.
IAS officer? What is the qualification?
No, graduation, sir.
Are they more, all of them PhDs?
No, sir.
What they have? Why are they capable of making policies? Our society considers them to be capable of making policies because they have field level experience,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
So the point that I am trying to make is, rather, you should be excited that we are now opening up an opportunity in our society of people who will be capable of making policies following a scientific method.
Yes, sir.
That is perhaps more important than pursuing a PhD if you are not interested in going for an academic profession.
Mm. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So we have about 5 minutes left. Is there any other question? I was requesting the
Noyoni,
first gentleman who has still kept the video on to put it off for a number of times. You are not listening to what I am saying.
Sir, may I go?
Yes, please.
My name is Noyanika, and I have a BA in economics. I graduated last month because of the pandemic, but I just wanted to extend thanks to
Well,
the.
what does it mean? Because of the pandemic, you graduated?
No. I graduated very late because of the pandemic. I should have made that very clear. I just wanted
Yes,
to.
because
give
the
my
way you put the words, it meant that you could graduate only because of the pandemic.
No. I definitely graduated not because of the pandemic for sure. But I actually had a few questions. So from what I understand, there are many different avenues in which public policy can make a marked difference, like agriculture, climate change, maternal health care, child health care. And I'm sure that the unique academic background that this program will provide our students with will help us quite a lot in the way that we go into this field. I had two questions though. So the first question is, do you recommend choosing to work in one field or having a diverse set of interests? So the topics that I rattled off earlier are sort of the things that I sort of want to, learn more about and see how work is done in there. So that is the first question. And second question is, what role does research play in forming public policies? And I just want to give some sort of a background to this question. Research based on RCTs, for example, like Esther Duflo's and Abhijit Banerjee's recent work, which won the Nobel Prize, divided economists across the world. So, how far of a role does data and research and the end result of research play in how public policies are formed? Thank you.
Sandeep, would you like to react or should I react?
Okay. Your first question as to whether we should work on one field or multiple sectors. Very clearly, when you begin your career, I think you should concentrate on one or two only, perhaps one, because remember, I don't know what one really means. Because each subject, each sector is also vast in itself. You mentioned some words. You mentioned climate change. You mentioned agriculture. Each of them within themselves is huge. So
Right.
if you land up working in agriculture, the kind of experience you will gain and the kind of diversity you will have is mind-boggling, and you will realize that each of them is terribly exciting. And while you develop domain expertise or working expertise in that particular sector, the very fact that you are working in field gives you skills and abilities to then translate those skills and abilities into any other field. So if you say managed a farmer producer organization, or if you managed a cooperative, or if you run a farm yourself, or you work with farmers, or you work with government organizations that are looking at issues of why farming is not productive, or if you're looking at new technology initiatives in agriculture, all of these build skills in you to work with people, to look at the interface between policy and people, to bridge the gaps between what is being provided for people and how they are accessing it. Various kinds of skills come into you. So I think my suggestion would be start with what. Sometimes you might also find that what you believe you like right now, over a period of time, your interests might also change. Okay? Right. On the other hand, sometimes you get into an organization that is working with more than a few things. So say, for example, you get into a voluntary organization that is working in health as well as education as well as forest issues. Right? Mm-hmm. So you will probably start learning a little bit of each. You know, say, let me say you're put in charge of a school, then you'll probably know more about education. But if you're put in charge of a village with all the activities of that organization, so you will probably be running a meeting in the school. You may also be working in the local sub-health center. You might also do a little work with the Joint Forest Management Committee. So then you expertise of all these three and learning many other skills. So I think that would, there you probably gain some skills, maybe not in depth in each, but a lot of from each one. So a lot will depend on that. Your second question is, how does research come into this whole line? I think that's something that Professor Milendu will be better suited to answer than me. But let me put in one thing here, because I've had some involvement with development of certain policies in 10, 15 years, both when I was in government and before that when I was working with state governments. Research provides extremely powerful arguments for what it is showing. And it is not easy for people, even if they are only taking political decisions that may go contrary to what research is telling us, it's not easy for people or governments or institutions to go completely contrary to what good research shows. Data is also a very powerful argument. What data tells you, if it's, of course, analyzed properly. I mean, you will learn over the next 2 years that the same data you can use to tell different things. If you want to be mischievous with that data, you can misinterpret data or you can interpret it properly. Those are skills that your professors will tell you. But these give powerful arguments, and it's so if you have done your research well, if you've done your surveys well, if you've got data that is robust, that is perfect, and you worked on it hard and taken it from multiple sources, then all the kinds of things that good data and statistics will enable you, I think you can provide fairly powerful arguments and end up actually shaping policy. Okay. Professor Milendu.
Well, Nayanika, unfortunately, like you, I also studied economics and then realized that economics is not enough to solve problems of public policy. And I realized that my expertise, whatever level that may be it in quantitative understanding of a situation or even beyond that, using a lot of mathematics and a lot of econometrics, I could realize that economics did not help me in solving the problems that we face at the real level. The reason being that every individual we interact with in the society simultaneously is an economic agent, is a political agent, and is a social agent. Mm-hmm. And when we are specializing in a particular domain, our problem is that we consider that individual to be behaving only as an economic agent or as a political agent or as a social agent.
But very often it's an intermingling of the three.
It is not very often, always.
Huh.
Always an individual is a combination of these three agents, and on top of it, that individual always sort of exchanges or interacts with the environment.
Right.
So whenever we are talking about public policy, we have to take this into account, that a public policy problem cannot be solved by economics alone, or political scientists alone, or sociologists alone, or an environmentalist alone. So the challenge to a public policy practitioner is to link these different behavioral perspective of a human being and the behavioral perspective of nature as well. And therein lies the specialization of a public policy expert. As Sandeep was mentioning, that if you go to a village for the development of that village, you cannot say that I am an expert in education and I will just think about that. You will realize there that, and that's why you have the idea of midday meal. What is that? We thought that education has got a huge link with the issue of nutrition and hunger. That is why we went for ICDS and linked it with the education program in the education policy today. Why? Because we think that education is linked to health as well. You cannot separate them out. So a domain expertise is required. But the first expertise that is expected of a public policy analyst is how he or she is capable of linking the different perspectives of a human behavior into one.
Okay.
Right? So that is the expertise you will generate, which won't be generated by a student studying doing either MA in economics or politics or sociology.
Yeah.
They may be knowing a lot in their domain, but they will be missing the fundamental capability of linking these three domains into one so that the problems are solved. If you have a look at the academic research in economics or politics or sociology or psychology or history, they are best suitable to identify a problem. They are not capable of to find a solution to the problem. And that's why we tell that they are academic. They have no link to the real life. Because they are very good and very well trained to identify a problem. But they haven't developed the skill to solve the problem after it has been identified. So that is the fundamental difference. And that is why I often, in spite of being a PhD in economics, I often tell my students that public policy itself is an indicator of the failure of economics. Had economics been able to solve all the economic problems, then there would have been no requirement of a program on public policy.
Right.
So that is perhaps you have to keep in mind while you are pursuing the program here. I hope I could give you an answer to the first one. The second one is something which I will discuss in my lecture when I have it on 11th, I believe I have a session with you.
Right.
But I would just like to mention, you have mentioned two names, Abhijit and Esther,
Yeah.
but three of them got the Nobel Prize. One, do you remember the third one?
No, sir. If I had, I would definitely have mentioned.
Yes, but the point is you must remember that he was the one who first started this process. And they got more publicity, and that's why the one who started it has gone into the oblivion. His name is Michael Kramer.
Michael.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we have to wind up the session.
Yes,
So thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Sandeep. Thanks for taking the session simultaneously with driving. I hope.
No,
And,
he is driving the students, na?
Yes. Anyway, so thanks a lot, students. Thank you very much. And student, please remember that tomorrow at 11 o'clock you will have session with Dr. Vivek Pandavetya. Please join that without fail. Wish you all the very best and take good care of yourself. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.